you know, the objective again is that at the end of these classes that you're going to walk away and not have to be flipping through a big thick book looking for chapter 6 or chapter 26 to try and figure out how do I build a strategic plan, right? You're going to have the tools, we're going to practice it, you're going to walk away, and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. And if you use it, it will do you well, okay? So, I'm going to give you, the idea behind this is we're going to practice and practice and practice and play games and do things that will teach you as much as the real world simulation as I can bring into this classroom, okay? So, I'm putting this website access, it's a portal up for you because write it down because this is one of the options that you'll have in building your strategic plan. I will go through it in a little while, some of the questions that you can do to prepare for your strategic presentation tomorrow. And the reason I'm doing this now is that I found that if I wait until tomorrow, you'd have gone through all of today and you would not have had a chance to be thinking about how you're going to prepare for these presentations. So I've just put this up here. That's the password, that's the access, the port. Write it down. You'll find it useful later on today, okay? So, having said that, let's talk about how do I structure my presentation? How do I build a strategic plan? So, what is strategic planning? What is strategic planning? Somebody. Rutel, you see I remembered your name.
It's the fact that taking like information and intelligence of your environments in order to implement long-term or medium-term strategy and implement all the steps in order to achieve a certain goal.
Very good. Give him a card. Somebody else? Anybody else? Zora.
Strategic planning is maybe the different step that you have to do in order to achieve a mission or goal regarding all the resource and the capacity of the company, and you have to take in consideration all of these steps in order to achieve the main goal.
Okay. Give her a card. Anybody else? A lot of people think of strategic planning as some kind of a closed door activity that only happens at a board level in a private room and where it's all secretive. Well, that's a big myth. Strategic planning is all around us. It doesn't only happen at the board or directorship level. It happens in divisions, it happens in departments, it happens on your production floor. It happens all around us. In fact, it happens in your daily lives. A couple of years ago, the exercise that we're about to get into the workshop was to talk about some of our strategic planning experiences before we get into this in the business environment. And so this one guy said, well, I don't have any strategic experience. I've never had a job in my life. He said, but I do have a strategy that I implemented once, and I would like to know if I can write about it. So he came and he asked me, I said, yeah, that sounds fine. I mean, let's see what it comes out to be. Well, this guy's strategy that he wrote about was how to get the girl of his dreams. And he wrote a strategic plan about this girl that he had liked and how he was going to get her attention and get her. And you would be surprised how many decisions and how many strategic choices you make in a day that affect your daily lives. And then when you go into the formal environment of a business setting, you also make decisions within that business environment that affects your business. So strategic planning is not something that only occurs at this board level. It happens all around us, and we're going to demystify the whole aspect of strategic planning over the next couple of days. So, how do I structure my presentation? Well, a couple of things we need to know. You know, when you're writing a strategic plan and you're going to present to an investor, a banker, or use as a guideline for yourself, let's take ourselves and put ourselves in the environment of we're writing a strategic plan and we're going to go present it to our banker, a financer, because we've got to put this plan together so that we can convince him that we know what we're talking about, and so that he will lend us money, right? I mean, most of you inside of here, businessmen, businesswomen, you're going to go out into the world, you're going to have your ideas, and you're going to want to implement them. You're going to want to put together some great idea and want to go and get in front of a financer, HSBC, Credit Agricole, whatever the case might be, so that you can present your idea and hopefully win the vote of confidence of the banker. But what you have to remember is that when you go into this environment to present your idea, you're standing up in front of a banker that has got 1,000 other ideas being presented to him. So he has got to figure out how best he uses his money. His money is his commodity. The same way that we see the vendor at the corner of a street selling pears and apples and fruits, well, the banker is selling dollars. That's what he's doing. So you've got to understand that the bank is not the almighty. He's just another businessman looking to make a buck on your idea, okay? Because he's taking depositors' money, people that go to the bank, put their money in there. He's using that money to lend you so that he could get a nice return, so he can give his customers their return and he keeps the difference, right? So the riskier your project is, or the riskier that he convinces you that your project is, the higher the interest rate he can charge you, and the less interest he can give to the customer. The difference between the 1% he gives to the customer that makes the deposit and the 7% he charges you for borrowing the money, that 6% goes in the bank's pocket, right? So it's a business. It's a business. So when you go to the bank and you prepare your strategic plan and you are sitting down in front of the bank, you're one of 1,000 people that he's looking at, because he has a limited pool of capital to deploy. He has a limited pool of capital that he's going to lend on, right? And he wants to make sure that lending to you is going to be the best decision that he made, so that he can get his money back and get a return and look good in the eyes of his board and his customers, right? Simple. We all know that, right? That's simple stuff, okay? So, when we go in front of this banker and we start to talk about our plan, there are a couple things, and there are a couple of fundamental things that he wants to know. First, to begin, he wants to make sure that you got this thing down. He wants to make sure that you know exactly what you're talking about, that the industry that you're getting into is not some big mystery to you. You understand it so well that if something took place, something happened, you knew exactly how to respond. So he needs to know that you, the businessman, businesswoman, has your hands around exactly where you are today in this market sector, industry sector, market environment. You understand exactly the lay of the land, exactly who your competitors are, exactly what the dynamics are as we sit today in this industry, right? So, the first thing that you need to convince that banker is what? I'm going to teach you 3 simple things, and by tomorrow you're going to be singing them, okay? 3 simple things. So what's the first thing?
A good idea?
Huh?
A good idea?
Well, yes, it's a good idea, but what's the first thing you need to convince the banker when you're talking about your environment? Yes, but broader.
That you are capable to lead that business, I mean bankruptcy or things like that you have enough funds to assure him that you will at least succeed.
Yes, you're convincing him that you understand the environment. So you're convincing him of where you are today. All right? So Frederick, come. Come on. Item, first thing, you're going to write, where we are. Okay? Where we are. Okay? Put that in big bold letters. No? Big bold letters. Take that off. I want everybody to see it. Right? Like, you're going to put, the 2 lines you're going to put here. The first one is where we are. Right?
Where do you want to go?
All right. Don't get ahead of yourself. Hold on. Okay, hold on. That's right. That's the next one. But the second item is where we want to go. So put it down. He jumped the gun on me. All right, give him a card. Now, so we've got past the first stage of it. We've convinced our banker that we understand unquestionably we're master of our industry sector. We understand perfectly what our market segment is. We know where we are. Okay, so the guy feels comfortable that you know where you are. The next thing you need to do is to convince him where you want to go, right? What's your next step?
How you want to do it?
Huh?
How you want to do it?
Wait a second, you guys are jumping ahead of me. You're a little bit too smart for me this morning. Hold on. Let's do number 2, right? Where we want to go, right? So you got to convince him where exactly you want to take this business, right? What it is that you're going to do that's so different. And therein lies where you develop your strategy, where we want to go, right? That's where your strategy is. That's where, whether it's a blue ocean strategy, first mover, second mover, whatever the case might be, where you want to go, okay? Now, you've got this across to him, so he's comfortable that you know exactly what your industry is about, what your market conditions are, where you are. He's convinced that you've got a great strategy, but 90% of businesses fail because of what? Give him another card. But Ratul, you're on fire this morning. Okay. Poor implementation, poor execution. 90% of businesses fail because we fail to execute. We can sit down and talk about it all day long, but when you actually have to go and implement, that's where you really, it's a daunting challenge at times, right? And we'll play a game this afternoon where you'll actually see the difference between planning and implementation. So, the biggest question he has at that point is, okay, so you might be a dreamer, you might not be a dreamer, you got a great strategy. He's going to look to see, well, can you really implement this strategy? Do you have the management team? Do you have the resources? Have you planned for the resources? What's your action plan? What's your timeline? What's your budgets? Are you capable of doing that? So the third one is, where we are, where we want to go, how we're going to get there. How we're going to get there. Okay? And so how we're getting there entails your budgeting, your resources, your management team, your action plan. Okay? What are you going to do? Who's going to do it by when? All right? It's all well and good to sit down here and talk about going to the moon. All right? Or putting the first spaceship or the first shuttle into space that takes passengers. But how you're going to do it is another thing. Okay? So how are we going to get there? So now you've got this plan up to this point, right? Well, we all know that nothing always works the way we plan it to, right? So there's one last part of it that we always have to take into consideration, and I'll tell you what it is. And that last part is feedback and control, because you don't want to set up a business like a runaway train. You don't want to, after you've got this banker's money and you start to implement and you start to spend money on advertising and marketing because you're going to light the world on fire with $100 million in sales, halfway into this project, mid-stride, okay? So you don't want to be like a runaway train, all right? Where you're barreling down this path and you don't have any monitoring, any control, any checkpoints to make sure that you're achieving your targets and your milestones. Let's say you set a goal of $100 million in sales for the year, whatever the case might be, selling widgets, and you got a $10 million sales and marketing budget. Well, you don't want to wait till 12 months have passed and you spend the $10 million to see where your sales are. You want to check in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter. So you want to set milestones and targets and make sure that you have some sort of feedback so you can monitor and control. All right? So, if I teach you nothing else for the next 2 days, right? These are the 4 things that I want you to remember. In building a strategic plan, you need to document where you are, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and have a feedback and control. And if you can build every strategic plan, business plan, that takes into consideration these 3 or 4 factors, you will build a well-received, a well-constructed strategic plan. Thank you, Frederick. Give Frederick a carrot. So, those are the four things that these are the three things that we're gonna, 3 to 4 things that we're gonna beat on from now until tomorrow. It's not a mystery. It's not rocket science. It's really basic. But what you will learn out of strategic planning is if I can share with you, and I will, some of my experiences, some of the challenges that I have encountered, some of the obstacles that I faced, some of the aspects that caused me not to succeed with certain plans, and others that were great successes. You could inherit that experience as part of a history as you move forward, so that you could avoid some of those same pitfalls. Okay? Because strategic planning, a lot of it is about experience. It's about understanding what happens if you do certain things, or understanding how to react and have contingencies for other factors that you don't generally always have control over. So, in our strategic plan, where we are. Now, when you're building a strategic plan, I don't expect you to, item number 1, where we are. I mean, that's grade school stuff, right? You're using this as triggers to remind you of how to build a plan. When you're putting together the where we are part of it, you're looking at your environmental scanning. The banker wants to understand, and you need to also know succinctly where you are. And in understanding where you are, you come back to your traditional SWOT, okay? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You scan your internal environment, and your external environment, okay? Now, when we're doing this part of it, we're not going to use your traditional SWOT. We're going to use the EFAS and the IFAS, right? And I'm sure many of you read it in chapter 26, right? Who didn't read it? So we all know what it is, right? It's just the EFAS and the IFAS is a more objective approach to building a SWOT. That's all it is. It's the same thing, except you're using numerical values to determine what are the top 4 or 5 items of priority. So, once you can determine where you are, okay, in building your strategic plan, and are able to articulate it and document it clearly, you've gotten across the first obstacle of getting that banker's attention to understand what it is that you want to accomplish. Because if he doesn't feel comfortable that you understand your present market condition, you're not going to get to the next step. You've lost him. Okay? So, and for yourself, if you don't understand your present market condition, you're not going to understand how to implement any strategy you may come up with. Because you've got to understand the playing field that you're on so that you could be prepared for that next step. Okay? Any questions on that? Where we want to go. All right? Well, where we want to go consists of our strategy. Okay, we got to determine what our strategy is going to be. We're going to just sell at a better price, a bigger margin. We're going to be a blue ocean mover. What is a blue ocean strategy? Anybody? Have you ever heard of blue ocean strategy? Anybody?
Yeah.
Who said yeah?
It's when you go into a market that hasn't been worked on before.
Give him a card. Blue ocean strategies competed in a market space where there are no competitors. You're the only one in there. But you're not there for long, because as your competitor sees you move in there, they're going to come. And this afternoon we're going to watch some videos about blue ocean strategies in 3 market sectors: the computer industry, the car industry, and the theater industry. And we'll see where and how these pioneers of industry moved in with innovative product and blue ocean strategy that soon eventually became crowded in those market spaces, and how some of them continued to reinvent themselves and become better and better. And it's a very interesting seminar. We'll do that this afternoon. So we determine what our strategy is. First, we determine what our mission or our vision is. Where do we want to go based on our company's vision? We identify our strategy and our goals and our objectives. Okay? And that's where we want to go. That's the part of where we want to go. The next part, which is the strategic implementation, is how we're going to get there. You know, we can talk all day long about wanting to do $100 million in sales, or wanting to be the best biotech company in the world, and lead the biopolymer space with the charge of replacement for plastics. But if we don't have a clear and articulate strategic implementation plan, all of our dreams and all of our visions will never come to reality. Okay? The objective is here in this part of how we're going to get there is to articulate very clearly the steps that we need to take to get there. And in doing so, again, you don't head up how we're going to get there. In that part of your plan, you're going to identify your budgets, your action plan, okay, the resources that you may need, the time it may take you, okay, and in many cases, contingencies. Because in a lot of times that you have a strategy to implement, sometimes there's some uncontrollable factors that you're aware of that you need to make assumptions for, but you also need to plan in the event they don't go the way that you anticipate it will. For example, if part of your strategy was playing on a certain interest rate change in the markets, and it didn't go that way, what would happen if? And you've got a plan for that, what if, okay? So, as you continue building your strategic plan, how we're going to get there is a key part of that plan. But now that you've got basically most of the body of the plan together, and you're going out and you're implementing, the very, very key and important aspect of it is also feedback and control, or you value buy-in to it the first time. In other words, the directors did not believe that it was necessary. When you build strategy, you've got to have buy-in and ownership. The people involved in a strategy that are responsible for the execution have got to believe in it. If they don't believe in it, you're going to fail. And therein was the problem. When I first presented that strategy, no one thought it was necessary. No one believed in it. And even as much as I was determined and diligent and motivated to get it done, I didn't have buy-in. And as a result, so many other layers of support that I needed was not there. So when you build a strategy, you've got to be very careful to ensure that you have buy-in, that you have support, because no one man is an island. And in any company, you're going to need innovation and control, the last part of it. And so, this part here, we want to set milestones. We want to be very clear about what those milestones are going to look like based on the targets that we set, and so that we can identify quantitatively and qualitatively a feedback, so we can monitor our progress with our strategic implementation of this plan. Overview of what a strategic plan might be as you define it there. I mean, that's very simple, watered down, but just as you go through verbally to define your strategic planning experience, you define each of the different segments from where you are right down to the end of your feedback and your results, you know. And so when we go to do it in a written document, we have to do it in that same structure but in much more detail, right?